Hello everyone. Stevie here. This is just a small broadcast to get something off my mind. Leading on from my podcasts on the FBE movement and the anti-Brexit movements at large. Hopefully this small bit of talking can help the anti-Brexit movements stay on track and avoid division. So today, how to spot a shill / sock puppet / troll within the anti-Brexit movement. So why am I recording this, you may ask? Well, shills / bots / trolls and sock puppets have well and truly infiltrated every anti-Brexit discussion with varying amounts of success. The most dangerous of these are the sock puppet accounts. Their goals are simple: to create division, with the most popular tactic being to use metaphors of the left and use these to reframe every discussion into a left-right political argument, distracting us all from the anti-Brexit debates and baiting us into pointless arguments. I mean, already division has been caused as people from varying political sides have been driving us apart, or we've been driven apart. Even people on the same sides have been driven apart. And a lot of the movements are being driven apart because there's this myth going about that various movements themselves are sock puppet movements. This is not true. This is a view that has been engineered and bred by these sock puppet agent type people. I've got no idea who they are. They could be Tories, they could be Lib Dems, they could be Russians. Hey, I don't know. All I know is it's pretty easy to spot them. I mean, the anti-Brexit movements, all of them, started as apolitical movements. This is a key fact to remember, because Brexit is not about left-right. Brexit is about everyone. It's about the UK getting dragged out of the EU. So the only political stances any groups really need to have is to support the EU remaining together and to fight the hard right of politics, because that's just bad in general, and that's what's leading us down the garden path. So how do you spot the shills or fake accounts within the movements? Well, here is Stevie's shill test. There are 4 different classifications here. Let's go over them quickly. Number 1, fake accounts or bots. Now there are many of these floating about within the anti-Brexit movement and Twitter at large. They are very easily spotted, as overall they use the same 3 female models and claim to be cosplayers or gamer girls. Now, I've posted a few of these on my timeline. You can find them. They're very easy to spot. These are utterly harmless, okay? All these accounts want to do is to spread links for various marketplaces, but mostly adult dating sites. So when you see these popping up or following or liking anything, do not worry about it. All they do is follow whatever is ever trending at the time and try and latch onto it. They are not the problem here. Just accept the free follower. Number 2, sock puppets. Well, sock puppets actually falls into 2 different categories. This is sock puppet tactic 1, political soapboxing. Now, as I said before, the anti-Brexit movements were never set up as a platform for party political advertising or politicking. So whenever you see this happening, look at who started it. Do they do this a lot? And what is their post history like? Most of the time, these conversations are started by provocateurs who aim to start these arguments and cause fights. Ask yourself, when you see these sort of debates, is this line of debate actually seeking to do anything for the anti-Brexit movement at large, or is this just a political debate? Is this just someone hating on Jeremy Corbyn? Because if so, question it. The second tactic used by the sock puppet accounts is the reframing of arguments. So this group of sock puppets is a bit harder to spot because they're a lot more subtle. I would say this group has been developing as the movements have grown, all of them. There are provocateurs that are taking the words of people within the movement and painting them as shills or sock puppets. Many of these accounts are actually highlighting sock puppet accounts. They are highlighting trolls and such, and that's cool. And that breeds a sense of trust, that you can trust these people because they're pointing out the bad guys. But then when you get into the meat and two veg of what they're talking about, you can see that they are just doing the same as number one. Now, I've seen a few of these that claim to be outing the sock puppets, but all they're doing is outing people that are trolls, who are easy to spot trolls, and then they're using that platform and that trust they have built to launch their own rhetoric and their own political soapboxing. But because they've highlighted the trolls, people see them as trustable. This has to be avoided because this is just basics of perception management. They're just controlling how people see the arguments, how people see them, and how people see everything at large. I mean, you could call this as perception management as a way, but I'm doing this as a complete honest. I'm doing this to try and help people. I don't want to manage perceptions in a bad way. I want people to realise that there's people trying to pull our strings and subvert us into their way of thinking, especially in the Brexit debate, because I feel that is wrong. And there is a number 4 or number 3, and this is the typification of the shills. They are just trolls. I mean, do we really need to describe trolls? No, they're not worth the breath. They're just not worth the breath. A lot of them will just come into the arguments and just start making these hard-headed pro-Brexit comments that are just embarrassing. They don't make any sense. They don't bring anything to the table. They just shout for Brexit. They're just trolls. There's no need to, again, they're not really worth worrying about because they're not subtle. Their attempt at perception management's laughable because they don't know what they're doing. They're just coming in and just going, ah, screw you, anti-Brexit. But let's end this with something to think about, because, I mean, we don't need to keep going on about trolls. At the moment, on both conscious and subconscious levels, Jeremy Corbyn is a living metaphor of the left. He stands as he's the picture of the left. When you think of the left, you think Corbyn, whether subconsciously or consciously. The constant attacks on Corbyn are done to poison people against the left of politics. Now, I'm talking about within the anti-Brexit movements. They are done to poison the left, not Corbyn directly. Corbyn is a metaphor here, because when people who are not supporters of Corbyn hear a Corbyn, they just say, oh, that left is a bunch of lefty socialists, blah blah blah, and that's not cool. I have seen very little people going out of their way to soapbox against the Conservatives in the way that they are attacking Corbyn and the left. This is the warping of facts, and this is perception management, and this is, they're trying to use this platform and this argument that somehow, like, the Labour equals hardest Brexit possible. It's just silly. But these have led to many sock puppet accounts using the anti-Brexit group hashtags to claim that things like, after 30 years, they are changing their vote away from the left, or that I will never vote Labour again while Corbyn is in charge. Anyone with common sense will realise that anyone moving their vote in an upcoming election away from the left will just be supporting a hard Brexit, because taking votes away from Labour, who are the only party who can actually mount an opposition that could actually take government over, is silly. And if you vote for the other people, you're just giving your vote to the Tories, which means, you guessed it, the hardest, worst Brexit we can possibly think of, with David Davis in charge. I mean, we don't even have an election coming up, so why is this in the... It doesn't make sense. It is impossible to know whether these people are being activated via groups, or if many of them are just sheepishly repeating what they think is important by people that are influencers within the social media world. If you don't know what an influencer is, go and Google it. Hopefully one day I will be one. You never know. The easiest way to spot the sock puppets is to look at what they're saying. What kind of arguments are they using? Many of these accounts will use arguments which are taken from the mouth of Theresa May at Prime Minister's questions, And their arguments will be set up to push you to either move your vote towards the centre right, or the right of politics, as somehow this will win Brexit. And as I've already stated, that's a total myth. Just remember, and this is important, there is no general election coming up that we know about. So anyone try to change your view on whose vote you would go with in a general election when we're talking about Brexit is nothing but subversive behaviour, of which many people do not even know they're being subjected to, because that's what subversion is. You don't know you're being subverted until it's too late, and you stop and think, whoa, I made a really big mistake thinking that. It happens to the best of us. It's happened to me. People will follow and copy those who they hold in high regard, like the influencers and the such. This leads to people with power in their words, not power as in positions in government, but people with whose people listen to the words and say, wow, that word had weight. These people are pushing their followers to repeat their messages. A lot of the time this is not personal, and people do not even realise they have been activated or subverted in this way, which is the whole point of the subversion. You're not meant to know it's happening. And that's how, I think a lot of the people that are sock puppeting and trolling don't even realise they're doing it. And this is why I'm making this podcast. Hopefully it can open people's minds to they may be being controlled, or they may be being parroting messages that they shouldn't parrot, because it's just damaging. So everyone be aware. Do not let yourself be controlled by these people or these groups. All they want to do is to cause division and break up the anti-Brexit movement into smaller groups. We've already been divided into smaller groups, and we're getting divided still. And we can't do that. The more divided the anti-Brexit movement gets, the less our voices will be heard. And our voices need to be heard. So do not let them muffle our voices. Open the eyes. Really take in what's happening on social media, because it's impossible to be naive to how much people can be controlled by social media these days. We know this. We know this from how the Russians affected the American election, how the Russians have done stuff in the Brexit election, and God knows who else. I don't think this is the Russians in any way. Although, if you were to read Russian geopolitical manuals, you will see that what's happening with Britain does fall into that. But I've got no proof for that, so I'm never going to say that. So in closing, thank you very much for listening. Please help and please spread this out so hopefully more people can hear it. And we can spread this message to be aware of sock puppet accounts and people with motives and agendas to drive people in the Brexit movement apart. You can follow me at Stevie C. Smith. My Twitter is always open. Hit me up, follow me, send me a message, debate me on this very topic if you want. I will gladly debate anyone on this topic. There's no limits. Let's do it. My website's worldoftrash.co.uk. You know where the podcasts are. Go to iTunes, subscribe. And if you're feeling fruity, buy a t-shirt, because selling twisted t-shirts help the radio station stay afloat. Take it easy, people. Have a good day.